Hey, good day, folks. My name is Paul Rencken from FEDSAS, and on behalf of the FEDSAS Centre of Technology today, I'd like to welcome Mauritz from SchoolCoding in to chat to us a little bit about products and services that they offer into our school environment. Mauritz, welcome on board, and maybe as a bit of an intro, give us an idea of your involvement with this FEDSAS Centre of Technology.
Thank you, Paul. Much appreciated for this opportunity. I've been almost want to say forever involved with FEDSAS. It's now numerous years. I've met with Rian, and that's where the relationship started. Eventually, also when I worked at Oudemoulen High School, met Tony there, Tony Marshall. This as well feels like a wonderful family to be part of. Um, and I know that I can pick up the phone and speak to you guys. When there's a problem with a listing or a link that's not working, quick and easy feedback. No, I almost want to say resistance. It's fixed. I get my response and it works. And also for the termly newsletters that we provide to the electronic magazine. So to all schools who may be hesitant of joining FEDSAS, I would say go for it. That you won't regret it.
Thanks very much, Mauritz. Really appreciate those kind and comforting words. Obviously, robotics and coding is back in the news. Let me call it that. Let me not say back in the news, but it's always been in the news. Maybe let's just give us an idea of the products and services that you offer to the school environment, Mauritz. Where do you sit into that position? What's your processes involved?
Right. So, quick background. We as a company assisted the Department of Basic Education in 2019 with the draft coding and robotics curriculum. And then we, through Shooter and Shooter Publishers, authored the digital skills workbooks. At that stage, they weren't even sure what to call this subject. That's how new it was. And then there was another draft released in 2021, and we jump into it, start authoring, and now we received the surprise of it's actually going to be a compulsory subject. So the role that we are playing as a company is to provide schools with a solution where they can receive workbooks for foundation phase, textbooks for grade fours to grade sevens, and we are busy sorting out the grade eights and nines. And we don't sell robotic sets because there's no robotic set in the curriculum. There's component sets in the curriculum. So that means, and that's quite nice, that instead of being stuck, I've got like a little robot, instead of just being stuck on using this as a tool, sometimes it's more of a barrier than what it's a crutch to assist you. So with the various sensors, now you can look at life problems that you can solve. How can you design a water sanitization plant, or how can you look at safety for a railway crossing? So that's the important stuff that we're trying to look at. So a lot of the focus on problem solving. And I regard myself as a friend of education and a friend of FEDSAS. So with that said, it's not always about making the sale. It's about reassuring schools with the solutions that we also have in place, but just with the support and the assistance, with my background with the curriculum and the aid that I can provide. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll hang on to one word which I think might make people a bit worried, that word compulsory. I think people sort of
Yes.
panic a little bit there. There obviously have been the early adapters that have got involved in robotics and coding. We've got one particular school that's on the FEDSAS list that's been probably a leader in it. The other day I heard a school up in KZN that's gone to world championships with robotics and coding and all sorts of processes. So they're obviously those early adopters. But now we're getting to those that haven't actually pushed the button. And now they're getting faced with this word
Yes.
compulsory. And I really like what you said, is that you'll partner with schools to help them into the process. How do you go about that engagement? We'll share contact details later, but if I was a chairman still of a governing body and I was now said, okay, now this is compulsory, someone's telling me I have to do this. What are the first steps? What do we need to do? Obviously get hold of you, but maybe give us an idea what's going to happen once we get hold of you. How do we start unpacking this barrier that we see there that we've got to
Yes.
get over?
I would actually just recommend people to or schools to watch the Ed Talk that we had last week on the 10th of September.
Mhm.
Um, that was a breakdown of what is the curriculum, what is it entail. The title of that session was Compliancy or Best Practice.
Mhm.
And that's what you are touching on.
Mhm.
You know, I can compare my school with the next school,
Mhm.
and our fees may be a bit lower than that school. So I'm just going to leave coding and robotics because
Yeah.
I'll never be able to afford or get to that Lego robotics and
Yeah.
the expensive equipment. So I'm just going to leave it.
Mhm.
So, or I will wait for the department to help us and to give us the support. And we know the feedback that we did receive from schools that were on the draft list for schools, and the support that they received. So, yeah, it's now actually a matter of best practice and to jump into coding and robotics with the existing resources that you do have available at your school. For example, the focus on the foundation phase is to actually teach coding and robotics without a computer, without hardware, but with the objects available in the classroom, sorting, arrange from large to small or small to big, all those words that the foundation phase teachers are already using. So, in my opinion, those teachers are already the best trained. They just don't know that the words they are using in the class, you know, when you give the instructions, that's part of algorithmic thinking. That's part of problem solving, the task that they are doing. So, the one word that I like to use is to demystify the myth around coding and robotics. It's not just coding and robotics. It's not a separate, isolated subject. And you know, people are referring to it as part of a curriculum or as a curriculum, but in fact, it's the CAPS curriculum, and this is just one of the subjects. And when you treat it that way, this subject is supposed to support or enhance, enrich the other subjects as well. So not an isolated subject. So that's sort of the advice and the guidance that I want to give to schools when they pick up the phone or they email us is start with what you've got. You know, prior to this mandatory curriculum, there were numerous service providers that had solutions that they gave to schools. And you can now think, oh, but there's not a drone in my curriculum anymore. So now this thing is now a dust collector on the shelf. No, it's not. You utilize that drone, you utilize the lessons that you've got from that service provider because it's still delivering the concepts or the principles for the coding and the robotics.
I think that's a real good way of looking at it, and it really hits the point that you don't have to be hugely resourced, but the challenges around you can become the learning processes, if I can call it that. So the examples are around you. You mentioned waterworks. You mentioned processes that happen in the school environments, really, that can be examples of where the solution of applying the ideas with regards to coding and robotic does come through very well. Mauritz, maybe that's an idea of cost. If a school was to get hold of you, I don't need a full detail of the cost, but what does the products and the services actually cost for a school? I always look at it from the angle of a former chairperson now of a governing body.
Yes.
I'd now look at it and say, where do we fit it in the budget? We're in budget time at the moment. Where do we fit it in the budget, and how much is this going to cost us? So where does it start? I know you've spoken about the idea of using kind of what you've got, but where does it start? And no, don't tell us where it ends because it can just keep going up and up. Where does it start as far as the cost goes?
So, as far as cost, you are looking at a starting price for your grade R's at 100 Rand per child per year, which will provide that child with a workbook that they can complete, and they will write into that book the activities that they will complete. And then from grade 1 upwards, it basically increased with 10 or 15 Rand up to about 200 Rand for your grade 7 book. The component sets, that's normally the big spender. The problem there is, well, it's not really a problem. As a school, depending on the number of devices you have available. So let's say your class, you've got 30 children, so you've got 30 computers. Number one, you can only purchase a class set as a starter. That's about 4,000 Rand. That got all your equipment from grade R to grade 7. Or you can decide, okay, pair the learners. So that's 15 sets, or depending on the budget, one set per child. But as long as each child do have their textbook and their workbook, and then accompanying that is the teacher's guide. And within that teacher guides, there's QR codes that you can scan with your mobile phone that just add or enrich that specific activity. Sometimes you just can't explain everything on one page, and then that's why we've got those videos as well.
Yeah, I'm going to be a bit, maybe a bit controversial here and say, let's not wait for the department to deliver this stuff. Let's rather plan for it. And it's really great to hear that it's not necessary equipment that you've got to go buy, let's call it that there's guidebooks that you can buy that can help you on this path. So I think that's really fantastic. Mauritz, just quickly, how do schools get hold of you? What are your contact details? I will share them later as well, but maybe just give them to us now quickly.
All right, let me put this on the screen here.
Popping up there. There we go. Thank you very much. That is great. There's the contact details, folks. It's really great. Thanks very much. You can see all the details. We'll obviously share them with you as well. But if you need to, and I do think you do need to start getting involved in this process. The early adopters, as I've said, have gone ahead and started moving with the process. And over the last few years, I've also seen it's not just about getting Lego toys in your classroom. Let's call it that. It's about more understanding the thought processes behind it and the requirement behind it. Thanks very much, Mauritz. If you can just stop sharing, and we'll just finish off this short interview. Maybe just as a final word from you, Mauritz, what do schools need to do? Let's talk about two, maybe three different types of schools. Those schools that have already been the early adopters, I've spoken about them. Maybe the schools that have started looking at this, but they've still got a club, and let's call it that. They've still got like a club that are operating in the process. And then thirdly, what are the schools that haven't done anything? Those ones that have, I'll say it very carefully, put their head in the sand and think this is going to go away. Yes. Maybe not too much on the early adopters because they've run with the process, but maybe let's talk about the other two schools. A school that's got a club that have had a few interested educators that have sort of run this process. What do they now need to do? And then after that, tell us about the school that's had their head in the sand a little bit. What do they need to do?
So for all three schools, they require, number one, a teacher or a staff that can adopt coding and robotics at their school. We require teachers that are willing to learn. We don't know everything. And, I don't know about coding and robotics, so I'm just not going to do it. So if you are willing to learn and adopt to this new subject, you will reach quite heights at your school. The children will enjoy this subject. They will grasp the concepts, and you learn with them. My advice to most teachers, be one lesson ahead of the children. So you don't have to know everything. You can wing it, and you can see, oh, that's a brilliant question. Now, I've got no idea. I don't know what it is, but you're not going to say, you say, brilliant question. What do the rest of you guys think? Okay, yes, I haven't thought of that. That's brilliant. Or next week you come to me with that answer. Do some research on it. That gives me now a week chance just to go Google and ChatGPT and whatever to get to an answer. And, then you work around the situation. So as I've said, so coding and robotics shouldn't be an obstacle at your school. Rather, you must see it as a way to move forward and equipping your children with the knowledge and the skills that they require. So at the schools with no resources and no budgets, that's no reason why you shouldn't start. Jump into it, get the teacher who's willing to be trained, and also the curriculum on the CAPS documents, study that thing. I've noticed numerous times that schools will just listen to what the service provider will have to offer instead of knowing that curriculum and to say, okay, but how does this fit in? How does that fit in? To the school who's got the budget, they've got the clubs, maybe you can consider running a club funder. I've worked with schools where they pay a term fee, and that fee can then be used in that budget for purchasing robotics equipment or computer hardware and so forth, it remains therefore allocated to the computer room. For the school, who've been running with this now for numerous years. You've attended robotic seminars and workshops and the Lego Leagues robotics and drone competitions. To those schools, well done for taking lead and charge. And, don't think now, oh, now I have to spend more money because this robot or that drone just doesn't fit into the curriculum anymore. It does fit in. You must just look again at your curriculum guidelines and the support documents that are available. And then you would be able to use the existing equipment that you've got without really breaking the bank. And then, like I said, if you require assistance or support, do not hesitate to make contact with us.
Okay. So I'm going to sum that up briefly, that you say you need a teacher who's a champion on the process. And you need one teacher to say, this is a good process. And then they start running it from that side. So that's the one thing I've picked up here. The school that are running a club, maybe get fundraisers going to expand that club, to get it more institutionalized, if I can call it that word. The champion is important. Those schools that have got their heads in the sand a little bit and aren't doing anything, they need to get hold of you. They need to contact you to say, take us in this path a little bit, take us down this path, what our resources are, where we need to go and have a look. But I think the big important thing, and this is my final word, is don't sit and do nothing anymore. It's not about the equipment, it's about the thought process that we need to instill in our youngsters. I think that's the real important thing. So thanks very much, Mauritz. I really appreciate the time. I appreciate you offering that. Thank you very much for everything you've done for coding and robotics. I don't think you really know how much you've actually affected the processes going forward, but thank you for everything that you've done for our education system. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate it.
Okay.